Sussex head coach Paul Farbrace, you always said, Paul, that you'd have an opinion of where Sussex are after 4 games, and we'll talk about that. But first of all, this game in particular, what's your take on these 3 days up here at Trent Bridge?
Look, we're obviously disappointed that we've lost the game. That's the first thing, and we expect to play well and we expect to compete in every game. And I think the game, this game has taught us a fair bit about us as a team. We've just had a conversation now in the changing room about the last month. And if you offered 51 points at this stage of the season after 4 games, I think we're pretty happy with that, and I think we would take that. We're disappointed in the way that we've lost the game and not to play very well. It's not just a generalisation of saying, oh, we played poor shots, we didn't bowl well. It's a combination of things, really. The first morning, the ball did a lot before lunch, and we lost quite a few wickets. And then after lunch, we had a chance to play better and score some runs, and we didn't quite take advantage of that. And probably it was a 250, 260 wicket, and we end up with 169 when we should have got 250, 260. So there straight away you're looking at a gap of 70 or 80 runs. And then when we bowled, we didn't bowl very well. Apart from Ollie Robinson, we didn't bowl very well with the new ball on that first day, and they probably scored 50 or 60 more runs than they should have done. So there's sort of 120, 130 runs difference from that first innings. And then we actually bowled so well on the Saturday morning. We caught brilliantly, as we have done all season. Yeah. We caught brilliantly. We got ourselves back into a position where we were actually in a good position. And in the end, there are 2 aspects to that first afternoon and the first evening, the 2 sessions that we didn't quite get right. And then you come to batting in the second innings, and you're 89 for none, 110 for 4. And we went a bit timid in that period. We stopped actually looking to score runs, and we were looking to survive. And actually, that's not how we want to play. And full credit to Notts that they bowled exceptionally well. But we got stuck in a little bit of a rut there, and we let them bowl at us. And once we let them bowl at us, we found it hard to break the shackles. And then, again, this morning we've shown great courage. Carson and Simpson have played brilliantly to get us to a position where we've got something to bowl at, and 140 odd, you've got something to bowl at. But again, unfortunately, Robbo bowled well with the new ball. Silsey didn't quite get it right, and Ben Duckett came in and took the game away from us, as he's more than capable of doing. So, look, we actually played some good cricket at times. What we weren't good enough to do in this game, but when we had 3 pressurised situations, we weren't quite good enough, or didn't quite make the right decisions. And that's where I think the conversation just now has been about, it's not just a case of not playing well. At times it's about maybe not making the right decision, and at times it was about not executing your decision well enough. So there's lots of different things that you have to look at, but by and large I'm actually quite pleased with where we're at. I never like losing, and I've never been one to say, oh, you learn more when you lose, so that's a good thing. That's a nonsense saying. I mean, you learn every day, you learn every session, and I think we're a team that are very honest. We're learning together. I would have batted first. So it'd be easy for me to say to you, it was a tough toss. The toss went against us. It didn't, because we'd have batted first. And so when I talk about mistakes being made, I'm just as culpable in that. I thought our best way of winning the game was to bat first, get through that tough first session, which you expect in every 4-day game, and then the pitch looked dry, and I thought it would bring our spinners into the game. Well, if the game finished on the 3rd day, we haven't been able to get the game into the 4th day and bring our spinners into it. I'm definitely not saying the players have made poor decisions, because I've made a poor decision there, the first one, and I whether I've misread it or expected too much of our players, I'm not quite sure. That'll be one for me to dwell on over the next few days. And the conversation we've just had is we've got 3 days off now. They've got an extra day off with Monday, with the game finishing early, and we're going to stick to the 3 days off, because I think for some of them it's now a case of getting a bit of energy back after 4 high intense games. And the intensity is higher than it is in Division 2. There's no question about that. And also, I think it's a reflection time for all of us to have a look back, have a look at how we played, have a look at how we practiced, have a look at how we prepared, and are we doing everything we can to give ourselves the best chance of being successful. And I think these 3 days have come at just a good time for us.
You talk a lot about competition for places. Ollie Carter came into the side today and looked very at home against a very good Notts attack, Paul.
He played very well first innings. I thought he played very well. He had contrasting innings really. Second innings he was one of those who I thought was a bit timid and sort of sat on his bat handle. In the first innings, I thought he put the pressure back on them really well, and he played exceptionally well for his 40. And then he probably will be one who, in terms of the decision was the right decision to come down it over the top, he didn't execute it well, and that's the nature of the game. You're not going to get every decision right, and that's why I say, I probably got a decision wrong. We got the decision right to bring the extra batter in, so that one went for us. Rather than playing Ari or Ollie Moore, we went with the extra batter, and we thought that we could play with four seamers. And the other thing where I probably got it wrong is I probably put too much on Tom Clark to be the fourth seamer, and Tom probably hasn't bowled enough overs in a game to be that fourth seamer. So I put him under enormous pressure, and that's down to me. That's not down to him. He didn't bowl well, but that's down to me probably putting him under a bit too much pressure. So I take responsibility for that, and that's where, as I say, we're a very honest team. We haven't been pointing fingers in there or raised voices. We just had a very calm, rational conversation because we think we're in a good place. We think we're playing good cricket. Yes, we haven't quite got it right here, and we've been beaten by a better team who adapted the conditions better than we did. And we learn from that. But the good thing is that you learn quickly if you're honest in your appraisal of how you play and how you're playing as a team. You don't learn quickly if you're not honest with yourself, and you try and kid yourself or con yourself, because or you point the finger at other people, or you point your finger at an umpiring decision or the pitch or whatever. You can't do that, and the best players don't do that, and we've got a lot of people in our dressing room who will be very honest. What we've got to be careful of is that they don't beat themselves up too much, because the game has a habit of beating you up enough as it is without you doing it to yourself.
A couple of performances to talk about. Ollie Robinson bowling some really long spells. He bowled 11 on the spin at Hove last week. He bowled 8 and 9 on the spin here, and he said to us last night he feels in a good place at the minute, Ollie, and that's great news for Sussex.
It is fantastic news. I think he's bowled brilliantly in this game. I really do. He's been our standout bowler in this game. He's done some great work in terms of being confident in how he's looking to bowl, but I think the long spells have done him the world of good. And it's not just this game. You're right, he did it against Surrey as well. There was a 90-minute spell against Surrey on the last morning that turned the game from potentially being a tricky last day to a comfortable last day for us, and that's the high level of skill that he possesses that he can bring to our team. And we're delighted he's in our team, and the fact that he's running in hard for us every time he bowls. He's putting in a lot of effort, but it's also matched by a high level of skill. It really is, and and I'm delighted to see him doing well. It'll do him good now to have a few days off, put his feet up, and then be ready for the Worcester game back at Hove.
I know you won't use injuries as an excuse, but you perhaps missed another seamer here this week. But we know Sean Hunt is out long term. What's the score in Henry in terms of looking ahead to the game against Worcester in a couple of weeks' time?
Yeah, I don't think Henry Crocombe will be ready for the Worcester game. I think the two that follow, the Taunton and Hampshire games, I'd expect to have him ready by then. But he won't have bowled a lot of overs, so that'll be a little bit of a risk. But he's making good progress. So he started to bowl, which is good, albeit very gently. But he started to bowl, and I don't think he'll be too far away. Probably another couple of weeks, and we should have him back. But we're not going to make excuses, because the opportunity here brought Ollie Carter into the team, and as you've rightly pointed out, he played exceptionally well in the first innings, and he showed everybody how capable a player he is on a tough pitch against a very, very good bowling attack. And that's the great thing about Ollie. He's one of those blokes. He's a bit of an unsung hero in our group, because he never complains, he never moans, he gets on with it. He does a lot of travelling without always getting game time, but when he does get game time, we always know that he's going to perform, and he never lets us down. He's one of those blokes who's always he's a 7 out of 10 every day, and it's the same with his attitude, his approach to the game. He's got an excellent approach, he's got an excellent attitude, and that pays him back when he gets selected, because sometimes players who don't play and then they get a game, they're not quite sure how to play it. They either try too hard, or they're still upset that they've not played and they take it into the game with them. He doesn't. He's very calm and just gets on and copes. And that's why, for me, he's a fantastic squad player to have, but he wants more. He wants to be in the team playing. And if he keeps playing like he did first innings, then he'll have a good case to play.